So to give you some background information, CADpoint is based in Crowthorne in Berkshire, and we are a gold partner for Autodesk software. We have a team of experts to assist you in all aspects of design. We are also partners with some of the most trusted hardware manufacturers in the industry, including HB, NVIDIA, and 3D Connexion. Our team can also offer introductory training for new customers to advanced courses for experienced users and to help you get more from your software. Moving on to our technical consultant, Jonathan Reinhardt, who will be speaking to you today in this live webinar. Jonathan has an immense amount of experience in the architectural industry. He has worked as an architectural technologist in SME firms and more recently as a BIM manager in a 15-person architectural practice. He has presented at various BIM events. So it is now with great pleasure to pass you on to Jonathan to go through this webinar of how to improve building design and construction coordination with Navisworks. Thank you, Jonathan.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Elena. And good morning, everybody, and for taking the time out of your busy day to join us today. And thanks for that introduction, Elena. So without further ado, I'll get along with it. So Elena has introduced me. So I've experience working in the industry, architectural technologist and BIM management as well. So I won't hang around too long on that. I'm based in Ireland, but I work across UK, Ireland and Europe as well, doing BIM support, BIM consultancy and BIM training as well, particularly around Revit and the integration of Navisworks as well, included in that. And I've also, worked in the industry as well. So just a bit of an agenda. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction, to BIM for those that perhaps are only new to BIM or are considering moving to it, or even if there's more advanced people out there, you can still stay along and hopefully learn something today as well. After that I'll do a brief introduction just of some of the other products that integrate with Navisworks from Autodesk as well, that come as part of the AC collection, and that's just to show you what's available to you. Some of you may already have all these products accessible to you, so it's just to make you aware of the integrations with Navisworks as well, and the further benefits you're able to get from using them in certain workflows as well. Then I'll introduce some workflows in Navisworks, and then I'll do a live demonstration as well between going between Revit and going between Navisworks, and showing you some common workflows when using Navisworks as well. And then at the end we'll have a few minutes for Q&A as well. So just to introduce BIM, we've seen the move from 2D to 3D happen on all project sizes, and it's all about connecting information right from the design stage through to the build stage and right through to the operational phase. And Navisworks plays a big part in this as well. It federates and brings all your information and coordinates information together, and is widely used by designers, architects, engineers, as well as contractors as well, to coordinate information. And this connects all of your information from the likes of Revit and other BIM authoring tools as well. So just to show you as the intervention of BIM as a process over a traditional process, we see here the McLeamy curve. It's a common enough curve being used these days in BIM context. I've seen it a lot. And what we see is the red curve, and this is the project timeline along the bottom. So the red curve is as the project moves along, that's the increase of cost to be able to make changes to whether it's a design, set of drawings, design specification, or a design model as you progress from your early design stage on the left-hand side and up to your operational stage. Obviously, if a design error makes it through onto site construction stage or to operational stage, to undo all of that work is going to be quite costly. If you're taking out plaster work, replastering, taking out block work, concrete, a lot of work, it's obviously going to be more expensive to do that, and especially manual labor, materials, and loss of time as well. So the earlier we can catch these design changes, the better. So what we hope to achieve within BIM processes is being able to impact the cost as a project moves along. So being able to, at the early design stage, being able to capture as many design errors as possible, and to be able to stop them from appearing on site, or to even reduce them. while it's not always possible to stop every little error getting through, we can reduce them significantly as well and operate in a more kind of lean process. And that's what we see as the black line, this number 1 line moving down here. This is the ability to be able to impact the cost as well in the traditional process, but we want to be able to change that with something like a BIM workflow and BIM methods as well. Just looking at BIM generally, we see greater cost predictability from the McGraw-Hill construction report of over 70%. We've seen an improved schedule of 85%, fewer errors on both site and both in the design stage as well, 85%. We see that we're able to optimize our design, and that's from over 90% of respondents, and almost 98% or almost 100% of people at 98% have a better understanding of the construction process as well as a result of that. Also, if you're running a design business or a construction business even, some of the business benefits of BIM, it allows you to win more work. We're seeing a lot more, particularly in the UK, from government procured projects now that it's been mandated, and being able to adhere to BIM level 2 and ISO 19650 are very important, and it's really driving the industry. And even over here in Ireland, we're seeing that impact as a result of the UK market being driven that direction in the last number of years as well, since it's been mandated. And also in Ireland, we use the ISO 19650 standard, and previous to that we used the PAS 1192 standard as well. So we're completely on the same page along that. Also, moving to BIM, it allows you to deliver higher quality designs as well. Being able to visualize your designs in 3D, like you see an example on the screen here, being able to show even clients different views of their building, how it might appear, different room internal views, and even then internally yourself, being able to iterate a design in a 3D context as well between your designers, whether it's engineering or architects, being able to discuss those points before it goes to the client and before it goes to site as well. And obviously you're able to if the client is asking for BIM, you know, you're able to charge more for this service because you're offering a better quality service, and because they want more done on the project. You're able to increase your revenue for your billable services within your business as well. And just to introduce some of Autodesk BIM solutions. So on the left hand side, we've got their AEC portfolio. So that's the Architecture, Engineering and Construction collection. So this is a collection of 20 plus products that come as one collection of products. And then we also have BIM 360. I won't go too far into that, but just to be aware, that's Autodesk's cloud solution to be able to store and collaborate on information as well. Also integrates with Navisworks, I must note, but also with Revit. Just allows you to access information on site. Maybe it's pulling design information from Revit or from Navisworks, and you're able to use BIM 360 to access it on a mobile device or an iPad as well, but just to be aware of those. So looking at that AEC collection of products, what we're going to look at today is Navisworks Manage. So I've just highlighted it here, you can see in grey and bold. As part of that AEC collection, if a lot of people do have these AEC collections, a lot of companies do because they're quite good value, you have access to all of these products here. You can see quite a number of products. You got Revit, Autocad, Format, Insight, a whole lot of products there. Navisworks Manage is also available to purchase separately. And then there's also something called Navisworks Simulate, and that's a slightly lower grade as well, but I'll show you the differences between those two. And there are workflows between Navisworks and quite a number of these products here as well. So the likes of Civil 3D, if you're working with Civil 3D, that will work with Navisworks. Revit will work with Navisworks. Recap Pro works with Navisworks. AutoCAD, Advanced Steel, and you kind of get the picture there. There's a lot of workflow integrations. So adding a lot of efficiency if you have something like the AEC collection, or if you just use Navisworks Manage, you know, you're able to collaborate with other consultants that might have these other software packages as well. If it's a civil engineer and you're a contractor, you can still work with the civil engineer and use something like Navisworks Manage to collaborate with external consultants as well. So just to be aware of that. So as we have, our BIM authoring tool at the base of everything is Revit. You know, that produces most building information anyway, to an extent. Obviously, we have Civil 3D to do civil type works and infra works and the infrastructure projects. But Revit is the main kind of BIM authoring tool, and this is the main workflow I'm going to go through today. Is the integration with Autodesk Revit and with Navisworks, and to show you some of the benefits of that as well. You can use Navisworks without Revit, but just to be aware that, you know, whatever you produce within Revit, that's what you pull into Navisworks as well. And Navisworks is almost a database and just collates all of this different design information. It's not only Autodesk information that it collates and pulls in together, it does do a lot of other external software packages as well, and I'll show you some of those in the demonstration. And just as part of the AC collection, you know, you can start your design with something like Format Pro, model and massing, and pull that into something like Revit, and then even push that further into something like Autodesk Insights to be able to perform energy analysis, and again, all part of the AC collection. But just be aware of those completely integrated workflows as well, that you're only creating the information once, maybe starting something in Format Pro as an architect or an engineer, pushing that into Revit, and then from Revit, you know, doing some energy analysis, capturing new values, daylighting analysis, things like that as well. So just considering the workflow efficiency of that, and how they all integrate with each other. It's not separate file types, or it's not separate and isolated file types that don't talk to each other. These actually do. And then AutoCAD Civil 3D if you're from a civils perspective as well. And then obviously what we're here to talk about today is the integration with Navisworks Manage and Autodesk Revit as well. So some of the main highlights of that are things like clash detection, model aggregation, or model federation, which is pulling your models together. You'll hear federation and aggregation quite a lot, and this is just talking about, you know, taking a structural engineer's model, taking an architect's model, mechanical engineer's model, and just pulling them all together and leveraging all the information in that, whether it's pulling quantification or being able to perform something like clash detection. And you know, the benefits of clash detection are massive, and I've used this in practice myself on quite large kind of 40-50 million euro projects and large student resident projects as well. And it's a huge benefit we're seeing, especially contractors have taken a huge liking to actually investing in Navisworks Manage themselves, but also the architect or the engineer can perform that role as well. And then obviously if you're performing that role, you can charge the client or whoever whoever is paying for the project essentially as well. So we'll look at some of those workflows. So just an introduction about Navisworks itself. It was acquired in 2007 by Autodesk. It had a previous product name. They acquired it and they integrated it with all of their own products as well. And it's a tool that is widely used by both designers and contractors to coordinate BIM models as well. And it just, as I said, it allows you to pull all of that information together. Like you can see a very nice 3D view here taken from Revit. And we can see we've got the integration of you know, MEP systems in green and purple here and yellow. We can see all the different systems. We've got our structural elements and our architectural elements. So this is essentially what you're doing with your model information. You're pulling it from each different consultant. And regardless if the consultant is in a separate company, in a separate location, or a separate country, or if you're a multidiscipline firm as well, you know, you'd still use Navisworks in a similar kind of way. Your workflow might just vary slightly differently in terms of how you share the files and stuff like that, and where perhaps you might store your files. Do you decide to store them in something like BIM 360 in the cloud as your common data environment and link them all up there, or have you got some sort of server system in place? And that's entirely up to yourself. But Navisworks will work with either type of workflow as well, and this allows you to reduce errors, both at the design process and also at the construction stage, so you're keeping your client happy, the project's running smoother, and you know, you're hopefully not losing money on the project either by reducing those errors, and the client is coming back to you for more projects as a result of everything running so well. So just another benefit of BIM process and using something like Navisworks as well. So I'm just going to look at the two different Navisworks products. So we have Navisworks Manage and we have Navisworks Simulate. These are both separate purchases, and I'm not too sure on cost myself. I know there's a difference in cost between Simulate and Manage. Simulate, I know, is a lower cost, but it has less functionality. So what we're going to look at today is Navisworks Manage, and this just allows you to suppose to control the outcomes using clash detection, as I mentioned, and you know, giving you advanced coordination, 5D analysis and simulation tools as well. And this is particularly used for clash detection as the main thing, and quantification. And then you can see the whole list different features there. Now they both integrate with BIM 360, which is very important to note as well. So you're able to send your information into the cloud. If that's what you want to do, you can use them independently of BIM 360 as well. You don't necessarily have to sign up to BIM 360 or anything like that. But just to be aware of those integrations, if yourself or consultants or clients are using it at the moment, it could be of benefit to be aware of that as well. So the main differences between the two of them is that Simulate doesn't do clash detection. It does allow you to do quantification. It does allow you to review the model and create markups and stuff like that as well. So some of the features which I'll show as part of the Navisworks demonstration today. But it does do, for example, 5D project scheduling, so that's linking costs into your model and creating certain photorealistic model renders and stuff like that as well. It doesn't have all the same features of file formats that it has access to or that it allows in Simulate as it does opposed to Manage. So Manage is kind of the beefier one and a slightly different cost as well. And in the Autodesk AEC collection, it's Manage that you get as part of that. It's not Simulate. So just to be aware of that as well. And obviously a lot of features as part of this, as part of both of them. But if you're using Navisworks Manage within the AEC collection, obviously you have all of those additional workflows that are pointed out there as well. So I'm just going to show you, this is just a small video from Autodesk, just to kind of give you a bit of a introduction. Replace me now. It won't. It's basically just giving a bit of a promo just about Navisworks. I'll skip it for now, but it's just giving a promo, show you the sort of the workflows and the size of projects that you can work with it. Starting in Revit, as obviously you can see here in the front. And I'm just going to move on to the next slide. But just giving an introduction, but I'm going to cover that anyway as part of one. So the agenda for the kind of what I'm going to run through next is just I'll do an introduction to Navisworks. I'll run through what the interface kind of looks like. Where you access all your tools, it's kind of model aggregation and federation workflows, and how to work with viewpoints as well, creating markups and being able to review and add comments to certain issues that you might find within a project as well, and how you can assign that to people and completely manage that. I'll do a demonstration of the clash detection as well, showing you how you can take a consultant's model and you're taking this digital twin or this virtually constructed model, and you're able to clash them together to see if there's any issues. So if there's a beam running through a pipe or a beam running through a duct, you're able to detect that before it happens on site. And the benefits of that, your guys aren't standing around on site wondering, okay, do we need to reroute the pipe over the beam, or how's it going to work? Can we cut through the beam? We have to get sign off from the engineer, and you've guys on site, with 4 or 5 guys working on this at the same point. Then you're contacting the designers, the design team. It's back and forth. You're looking at a day, or it could be hours, a day, or a couple of days before you have clarification on what the next action is to be. And those guys have lost that time, and they've been dedicated to it. And that's going to impact your build schedule, particularly on a large scale project or any scale project that you can imagine they all add up. So Navisworks using clash detection, one of the very main features of that. And the idea is to reduce those errors on site and to hopefully save your clients some time. Then we're going to look at the timeliner as well. So the timeliner allows you to take model information and put that into essentially a 4D timeline video of everything being constructed, and you'll see it running. It's very impressive to show a client, but you can show when is concrete getting poured, when is a certain floor level going to be completed and finishes. First fix, second fix of everything, and you can show that against your project schedule. And it does integrate with things like Primavera and other scheduling softwares as well. And then there's also quantification as well, which you're able to pull complete quantifications from the model as well. And I'll just give a bit of a brief introduction to that as well. So just looking at the interface, I'll just do a couple of slides, and then I'll jump into Navisworks, and we'll have a look around in there as well. So it's if you've used Revit or if you've used Autocad, you'll be familiar with this kind of ribbon arrangement of toolbars at the very top of the screen. So I've cut off the bottom of the screen just to show you this toolbar. And this is kind of your main home toolbar and where you access all your tools. Navisworks is probably one of the more easier tools to learn out of the Autodesk products. It's relatively intuitive. There's less tools to kind of get confused by, and it's very straightforward to be able to use as well. And you can access all of those tools up here. You can see, for example, you've got Flash Detective, Timeliner, Quantification are all sat nicely beside each other, and there's not too much other stuff going on. It's a very straightforward enough tool, but very effective at the same time as well. And then this is how it sits within the user interface. This, for example, is an advanced steel model that I had open just to take some screenshots of. So you can see your ribbon sits across the top. On your left-hand side, you've got a series of toolbars, bottom right, bottom screen as well. You've got some toolbars, and you can arrange them differently. And I'll show you I suppose the reason behind that and how you might arrange some of them also in the demonstration. And you can arrange different kind of view settings on the right-hand side as well, and turn on and off different features that you might want to access in there as well. Something to be aware of is the workspaces. What I'm hoping to do is to show you, maybe if you start using Navisworks today, or if you have it there, you can open it today and maybe follow back through this video just to learn some of the little tips and tricks that I'm going to show. So something like workspaces, this just allows you to save previous view settings essentially, and previous toolbars that you've had open. It's just good to be aware of. You find under the View tab, you just go to load workspace, and it will load previous workspaces or certain pre-programmed workspaces. So these are just all your toolbars, and you might only use certain ones on certain projects. You know, you mightn't be using the timeliner on every project, so you can have a workspace that doesn't include that. And this retains the information about which windows were open, their location, and the size of the application window. So fairly basic user interface stuff, but very effective, you know, to help you work better. It is quite useful if you can to use dual screen or two screens with something like Navisworks. The reason for that is you can dock all your palettes and all your toolbars on a separate screen as well, and then you can use the load workspaces to pull them in for your next project. You're not doing this every single time, and then you could, for example, create separate workspaces for, you know, whether occasional use, and then you've got your Power Autodesk Navis users as well, or set up your own company standard for your certain type of workspaces as well. And you can create your own custom workspaces just by saving that particular workspace. And this is only relative to your toolbars. It doesn't affect the model or anything that you have open. You've also got something called a sheet browser. So this allows you to attach sheets like DWGs, DWS, PDFs, and the sheet browser is just a dockable window which lists all the sheets models in the currently open file, and the sheets and models palette lists all the sheets in a multi-sheet file as well. So the label at the top of the palette indicates the file currently open in Autodesk Navisworks, and then the sheets and models can be represented as a list view or a thumbnail view as well. So by default, the display order is the same as the original file, and the currently selected model sheet is indicated with a shaded background. Fairly basic stuff there. It just allows you to browse, say, the properties palette. Can be used to examine properties for that particular sheet or model that is selected at that time. And you can also view the properties for the currently open file by clicking on its name. So very easy stuff. And just to note, if more than one sheet model is selected, the properties palette only shows the number of selected items and doesn't show any property information. So just to keep that in mind. And here we have the sheet browser on the right hand side here. So if you go to sheet browser, you can choose to pull in any of these types of files. So it does NWD, NWF, NWC, but it does Revit, AutoCAD, FBX. We even have MicroStation, CATIA, 3D Studio Max, Rhino, SketchUp, SolidWorks. So it can integrate with all your other products or your other consultants' products as well, to give you that completed closed workflow as well. And that's just sheet browsers found in the bottom right of the screen as well. So model aggregation. So something to understand about Navisworks is the different file types. So there's lots of different file types, as we can see, that it can pull in. But the main ones that you're going to come across are NWDs, which is a Navisworks documents file. You've got an NWF, which is a file set, and NWC, and obviously it works with RBT. And these are just the file types we're going to focus on today. I'm not going to go too far into the other ones as well, but just be aware. So an NWD file contains all the model geometry together with Navisworks specific data such as review markups. So you can think of the NWD as a snapshot of the current state of the model. And the NWD files are very small as they compress any sort of CAD data by up to 80% of the original size as well, so they can be quite neat to work with. An NWF file, on the other hand, this contains links to the original, any sort of native files as listed in the selection tree, and I'll show that in the demonstration, and together with Navisworks specific data such as review markups. No model geometry is saved in that particular format, the NWF, and this makes the NWF considerably smaller in size than an NWD. And then we have an NWC, and I'll show you what an NWC does. If you open a Revit model within Navisworks, it will automatically create an NWC file. It's a cached or an optimized version of the original Revit file. So NWC files, by default, when you open or append any native CAD or even a later scan from something like Recap Pro, scan files in Autodesk Navisworks, a cache file is created in the same directory, and it goes under the same name but with an NWC extension. And the NWC files are smaller than the original files, so this speeds up your access to commonly used files. And when you next open file or append a file in Autodesk Navisworks, the data is read from the corresponding cache file. If it is newer than the original file, if the cache file is older, which means the original file has changed, Autodesk Navisworks converts the updated file and creates a new cache file for it as well. So quite a critical kind of backbone of Navisworks there are NWD, NWC and NWF, and then obviously integration with Revit. So just to be aware of some of your settings, if you're bringing in a Revit file, for example, you just go to, before you bring it in, go into Options Editor up here in the top left, and just go to your options down the bottom, and then go to File Readers. And the reason for that is when it pulls in a Revit file, so you click on Revit, you have all of these different types of options, and the workflow I'm going to show you today is bringing in a Navisworks view. So this is Navisworks being aware of exactly what views to bring in from Revit, so to show you that direct connection between Revit. So you have to name your view as it's named in Revit as well, so you have to name it as Navisworks inside Revit. So I'll show you that workflow. Or there's other options. It can take in the first 3D view, which it finds in the Revit file, which probably isn't great practice because you don't know what that's going to be, what's going to be the view settings or the view filters set to that. Or you can bring in the entire project, so that's going to bring in absolutely everything, every light switch, every piece of furniture, and it mightn't necessarily be how you do it. So one of the best workflow is to bring in Navisworks views from within inside Revit. So to bring in Revit from Navisworks, here we are on the right hand side. I took a screenshot within one of my Revit projects, and I opened it as a 3D view, and I just renamed it as Navisworks. And therefore, for that previous workflow, when I open up this Revit file inside Navisworks, it's going to automatically pull it in on this particular view. And the relevance of that is, I'll show you in the demonstration, is that if you have view filter set, you can turn off certain items like cars and trees and people to save them being brought into your Navisworks environment as well. I'll show that in the demonstration. And then from Navisworks, you can open a Revit file directly from Navisworks. So just to be aware of that as well. And you can also, open architectural files or structural files or whatever it is from Revit, and it will convert it to an NWC within your folder setup. So, for example, in this screenshot, I opened an architectural Revit file. It automatically created an NWC file of the exact same file name. So we can see these top two, 56750_arc. I can see I worked on those this morning, and it converted this to a cache file. But just look at the significant smaller size of it. It's under 4 megabytes, and this is almost 31 megabytes. So less than between 5 and 10% of the original file size has been cached there as a result of just opening it, and it does it automatically for you. We have something called a switchback function. So this is another two-way integration with Revit and Navisworks. So if you identify something in Navisworks, right-click on that item. If it's a door, if it's a beam, right-click on it, and if you hit switchback, it's going to bring you to that specific view inside of Revit as well. I'll show that in the demonstration. And this is essentially the view on the left-hand side. I selected this door. You can see it's highlighted in blue in Navisworks here. I right-clicked on that door, went to switchback, and then that brought me directly into Revit there as well. So it created a view. You can see on the left-hand side here in my Revit browser, I've got a view called Navisworks Switchback, so it automatically created that as well. Anytime you do a switchback, it will automatically update the view as well. So that's handy for running things like clash detection or trying to find maybe stray items that you've identified in Navisworks in your Revit model. You're trying to find where they are. Just do a simple switchback and it's going to bring you to it. So the way you actually access that, all the latest versions of Revit in the last 2 or 3 years anyway come with the Navisworks plugin installed, and this has the switchback tool included in it. So if you just drop down, you go to add-ins, drop down your external tools, and you just have to select Auto Navisworks switchback in the first instance, and then it will work from then on. And you do have to have Revit and Navisworks open at the same time and have the same files open as well for that to be able to work as well. And just to be able to understand, kind of looking at being able to create viewpoints as well, but first we need to understand the kind of selection method within Navisworks. So within Navisworks here, we've got something called selection tree, and these are just different models that have been imported essentially. And this just allows you to navigate your model in a different way and to be able to create something called viewpoints. So a viewpoint is exactly, it's almost a 3D view, but you can save this as an XML file, for example, and produce a report of this with comments, and it will show a view. So this could be something like clash detection, reports that you want to send to a consultant, an engineer, or a client, and it will automatically take a viewpoint of every single clash that has been created, or in fact you can create your own viewpoints as well. You can add markups and comments to this under your review tab. You can draw different revision clouds, add text notes to this as well, and then in the bottom right here it will save it as a viewpoint, and then you can export them as an XML report. XML report is a very small file size and viewable in a web. Very, very good for sharing. And number of times to see what we get. So here's a class structural model with an architectural model. So it's found that this beam is actually hitting this floor in green. So it highlights the two separate items that are clashing. So we've got a vertical column here, and then we've got some sort of floor finish or floor from the architects here. So it's identifying it to that. But this could be a duct or a beam as well, or anything like that. And you can create different rules on how you want to clash things together. I'll jump into that now in a moment. And then we also have quantification as well, so you're able to pull complete quantities from within Navisworks as well. And these also integrate with external quantification programs as well. And you work with something called quantification workbooks, and this is your main workspace, and from in here you can perform a model automatic takeoff or a virtual takeoff, and you can change the view and quantification workbook to work with different types of items as well, and then export all of that into Excel and do 2D takeoffs and 3D takeoffs as well, and being able to reuse that information and linking it using so your GUIDs in Revit. You can link all of those items from Revit back to Navisworks as well, using something like that. And then, as I mentioned in Timeliner, and I'll show this in my demonstration now in a few minutes, in something like Timeliner, we can see here in the bottom left, we've got a complete build schedule, plan start, planned end, actual start, and we can see up here that this, I'll play a video now in a moment, and it will actually show this building being created and the date at which everything is occurring here on the left as well. So Timeliner, very useful, very handy, and really impresses clients as well. And if you're using next-gen BIM 360, there is cloud integration for BIM 360 issues. So if somebody captures an issue on site, on an iPad, on a mobile device, these can all be pushed back into Navisworks as well. And it also integrates with BIM 360 Blue Classic version and next generation version. So good to be aware of those. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into Navisworks here now quickly. I'm going to open it up down the bottom. So it is a desktop install, the same way you might install Revit, but it's a lot lighter of a program to be able to use as well. And just as I said, less toolbars, and it's a bit less intensive on your RAM and your machine power as well. So it opens up in a blank project here, and I'm just going to show you the user interface. You can see all the tools here I've described already, and it's a fairly, we've got 5 or 6 couple different options up here to run through. We've got our home tab. So the main things that you'll use, clash detection and Timeliner, and then quantification if that's the kind of level of things you want to go to as well. So I've nothing opened here at the moment. What I'm going to do here, I'm just going to open a previous file that I had. So what I'm going to do, I've got something called a health and safety model here. So I'm just going to ignore that, give me some warnings. So this is a structural model that I actually took from Revit, and it converts it to an NWC. You saw how quickly that opened up, and I'll just go back into that folder just to show you that again. So large structure, so I can see I have an NW, so this one. I have an NWC version and NWF versions of all of these different files that I've opened as well. I'm going to append now a different file into this. So appending a file just means, you know, you're linking in a file. So I can go append. I can choose any different file that I want. I can choose any NWC, NWD, or any type of Revit project I want to link in there. So I've got two linked in here already. And this example is in the health and safety context. So we've got a crane on site. We've got a crane on site. We've got our building. And we've got some site context as well. And we want to run some sort of clash detection against these as well. I'm just going to show you this in the most simplest form to give you a sense of it. So we've got our health and safety model, which is our crane. So on that crane, you can see we've got our turning circle. We can see, obviously, by eye, it's going to hit that building in the background, but just to kind of really simplify it and make it straightforward looking, I'm going to run a test on this. So I've clicked clash detection, clash detective. I've gone to add test. So I can have two different types of tests. I'm going to create a new test, and it shows me what models I have loaded in here. So I have an NWG, OVT, OVT. These are all different models. So these could be external consultants models, or they could be, you know, internal models as well. So I'm just going to choose, I want to clash my health and safety model, which is just my crane with my turning circle. I want to clash it against the structural model and the context model. And it's giving me here a tolerance. So you can set a tolerance of, you know, you can put in 25 mil. I'm just going to leave it at 0 for now, just to see what comes up. I'm going to hit run. So what this has actually done is identified any sort of clashes between these two particular models, or between these three models that I've integrated in here. So we can see here it's brought in quite a number of clashes. So we've got 63 clashes, which is relatively low. And I'm able to review every single of those clashes. So if I click on this clash, for example, it's going to show me exactly what's clashing here. So I'm just going to deselect off these. It's showing me exactly what, so what's clashing on this? It's showing me that the turning circle is obviously going to hit the building. It's pulled out that panel individually, but we know that that turning circle is going to hit that. Okay, so that's kind of just looking at clash detection at a very, very basic level. Now I can assign this to different individuals. So I can choose that particular clash. I can hit assign. I can put in a person's name here. I can call him Joe Blogs. Just going to say, okay, that's been assigned to him. I can then filter on every single clash I can run through. So we've got other clashes here. What have we got? We've got, that's a level clashing with the floor. That's probably not relevant. I can close that if I want. I can just say resolve. It's going to change that. I'm going to change the status of this one. I'm going to leave it as active, because it's an active clash. Here's another one. Got some more level heads. So you can imagine you can have a number of ducts, structural items, architectural items, and you can completely manage that process from in here and assign it to different individuals. And you can export this as a review. It saves everything as a viewpoint. So I can then create a review based on that as well, go write review, and it will export it to any file type that I specify here. Obviously XML, HTML, text file, and different types of reports there as well. So that's just clash detection at a very basic level. So I'm just going to close that for a moment, and I'm going to open up my Revit file. So I've got a pre-prepared Revit file here in Navisworks. Just going to go into my data set. And I've got, for example, I've got a structural file here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to show you how you'll work in a workflow moving from one to the other, and I will show you now. So that's just going to open up. I upgraded this earlier on, just the version of the Revit file. So it should open quick enough. It's only 15 megabytes. So just if I have a look, just while that's opening in the background, I'm just going to have a look. So this is the folder of data sets I created. You can see here on the right-hand side, it's quite a number of different file types. And as I said, it automatically creates a named cache version of that particular file. So here we are. Here's my Navisworks file. So this view I created earlier, but what I'm actually going to do, so I named this as Navisworks. So what this is going to do, when I import this file into Navisworks, first go into my options, go to my file readers, go to Revit, and this is where this is relative. So it's going to pull in Navisworks view because I have that view named in there, and if there's any numbers after it as well, it will also detect that. So I'm just going to close that. I'm going to open a fresh project. So within Navisworks, the way you will have worked with this, you may have duplicated it, say for example, a 3D view. I'm just going to delete this one and show you that process. You come into Revit. I'm going to rename this view. I've duplicated it. I'm going to call it Navisworks. Make sure you spell it correctly because it does look for the correct spelling, rightfully so. Go into Navisworks. I've got my architectural model linked in there. I've got all my structural items. So I can choose to hide certain items in here. So you can see, for example, I've hidden that in the background. I can choose to turn that off as well, just to make sure that doesn't import as a link. I can then, for example, I can filter all of these items, anything that I change in this particular view. So if I go into structure, if I want to turn off all the floors, for example, if I wanted to turn off, if you had rebar, you could turn that off in there as well. So it's only going to import what it sees in this view in front of you now. Everything you've hidden is linked to this view. I'm just going to click save on that. Then when I go into Navisworks, so I'm going to forget about this one that I started on already. I'm just going to open, and I'm going to go back into that project. Navisworks data set, so this particular one here. And it's going to overwrite this particular NWC file here. So click open, click no, saving that. You can see there it asks me did I want to save it as an NWF file. So that's a federated file. So it's just going to take a minute for this to open. So what this is doing in the background is taking that Revit file. You can see as the percentage moves up. It's taking that Revit file and it's converting it into an NWC file itself, and it's overriding the one in the background. So here we have we've brought in our structural file, and you can see it's only brought in those particular elements that I had turned on in this one. On the left-hand side here, I can see that I only have a structural model, but say I want to bring in a mechanical model. So I've got a systems file here that I've created already, equipment. I'm going to bring in the systems file. So it's brought in mechanical systems, which was originally a Revit file. Again, these are all linked within my Revit file. So I can bring them in individually. You brought in all the systems. You can see the ducts, all the piping and air units. And I want to run a clash detection on this as well. So clash detection. So I want to add a test. And I'm just going to select, I can drop down this selection tree on the left-hand side. I want to clash structural against just the systems, tolerance of 0. And you can see all the different clashes now here that is identified. So here we have one here. It clashes every single one. So number 1, it tells you what level it's at, what grid it's in, and when it was found, which is very handy for referring back to it as well. So this is obviously some sort of duct is clashing with a structural panel here. If I click on another one, same again, I can see there's a beam there clashing with, it's actually clashing with the grid, I would imagine that is. So I'm able to close that. So this just allows you to identify these before they happen on site. You can then review this, or somebody can review it on site. I can see here that I've got a pipe that's running through my structural beam. I can then assign this to somebody, like I showed you in the last workflow, and then they can all be completely managed. And it's, as I said, it's saving you or saving the contractor on site, saving the time on site by identifying this stuff in the first instance as well. So that's kind of looking at the Revit workflow. I'm going to show you the timeliner workflow. So for that, I've got another data set. Just going to open up into a data set. So I'm just going to open up my large structure. So this is a, I'll close that one, ignore that. No, that's the wrong one. Oh, that was my NWF. So what I'm just going to do is create a timeliner, and just I'll do it in a very, very quick mode, just to show you how it might come through. Just a minute. So large structure, NWF, NWT. Ah, there's the one. There we are. So I'm just going to show you the structure, and then I'll jump into a bit of a Q&A at the end. I won't have time to show you this walk around guide, but you can do a complete fly through or walk mode through your building as well if you want. You can change the speed of that as well. It just allows you to be able to look at your building in a different manner and be able to present it to clients, and even to show it on screen, whether it's in a site meeting or a design meeting. Okay, so timeline, I'm just going to pop this up at the bottom left. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do very quickly, for every topmost layer I want to simulate, and you can see here it's automatically given like the roof a date for planned end, planned start. The floors, I can change these dates to whatever is linked to my particular build schedule. And then I'm just going to, pop that open again. I'm just going to go to simulate at the end here. Just going to hit play on this, and you can see your building is being constructed related to your timeline, every floor element, every different item being constructed. You can see you've got your different floors being built. It turns green as it's being constructed. You can see obviously the jump in schedule there to a different floor level being built higher. All your structural items, and you can export this as a video as well. You know, and obviously change your dates to be completely accurate. And all of this relates to your build schedule. It's completely accurate and gives you a complete insight into how your building is going to be constructed and the time at which it's going to be constructed. And just before I jump into the Q&A, I'm just going to show you quantifications, similar workflow. You just have to set up your different workbooks, set which format you want it to meet. If you have a custom one, and then just click next, what you want to go into your quantification, click finish. That just automatically sets it up. And then you've got all your different list items here as well. You run your quantification, and then you can export any of that to quantities to Excel, XML, or just selected quantities to Excel. So that's all for now. I'll leave it there and take any questions and hand it back to you, Elena. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. So yeah, as Jonathan mentioned, we'll have questions now. If you can post any of your questions through the Q&A section that you'll see at the bottom. Have we got any questions coming through? I'll leave it a couple of moments in case anybody's typing away. Okay, as well.
Yeah. Sorry.
No questions yet. Oh yeah, we've got one question coming in now.
Yeah.
QED. Yeah, QED. I think is probably going to continue to type on that one. As we're waiting, I'll just explain, if you've enjoyed Jonathan's webinar here, we are doing another webinar. Well, we are actually doing a live workshop in London Bridge on Wednesday, the 29th of January, which will be about moving from 2D to BIM. So when we send this webinar details over to you, we will actually put the details of the workshop on the email to you. So that's given you enough time to write some questions. We do have one from Callum. Compliance related question, Jonathan. What are the plans for L2?
I presume you're referring to BIM level 2 there. BIM level 2. Maybe that's one we can answer offline. I'd just like to get just some more context and maybe specifics of that off your column, or column, sorry, BIM level 2. Also, BREEAM tie-ins, energy related to BIM level 2. From Navisworks point of view, probably energy doesn't really integrate directly with your Navisworks model. That's more from the Revit point of view. BIM level 2, I'm not sure on the standards for energy to be specific. There's no integration with Navisworks Energy as far as I know, but we can confirm that for you. Also, Bream tie-ins. There's no Bream tie-ins as far as I'm aware for something like Autodesk Insight. It does tie in with the American standards, but you can set up your own custom libraries and your own custom objects to meet your own standards. But there's no Bream tie-ins as of yet, as far as I'm aware. What file formats does Navisworks cover? So you've got your standard NWD, NWC, NWF, and I'll just open up here and show you. It's quite a long list. So open. So as I ran through earlier, you can see it takes in Pro-E, PDFs, Leica, Inventor files, Faro files, FBX, DWS, MicroStation, so quite a long, STL files, step files, 3D Max files as well. Do you need better performance machine than Revit for Navisworks? No, if your machine runs Revit, you should be absolutely fine on Navisworks. It's because it compresses most files. It's not as demanding whatsoever.
Okay, any more questions coming in? Okay, well, we will send out an email with the webinar attached, so you can review this recording again, and also I'll send you the details about the workshop and London Bridge on Wednesday the 29th, moving from 2D to BIM. So thank you very much for attending our webinar. I think actually there's one more question that's just come through. Jonathan, what are the main differences between manage and simulate?
The main difference is you can't do clash detection in simulate, and that's one of the biggest things. You can do a lot of the other features you can do, but you can't do clash detection.
Okay, do you want to put the contact us screen? Have you got that slide, Jonathan, for the last,
perfect.
Last slide? If anybody wants to contact us, obviously you can email us or have a look on our website, and our telephone number is there.